Good morning, everybody. It's Mal. I'm honored today to be joined by the fabulous and great Kid Icarus, Icky. We've been circling, we've been chatting, we've become really good friends over the last year in this space. And we talked about digital animals, we've talked about a lot of stuff on spaces, but today we are interviewing you about your art. So thank
Bum,
you so
bum,
much for joining
bum.
us.
I'm just sending out. I've got to go to my little bloomies in the Bloomverse, which maybe we can talk a bit about later. But I'm just sending out a little link for them because it would be nice for them to know and that we're live. Because we spoke about this, didn't we? We said, should we do it live or should we record it? And we both looked at each other and we were like, we should do it live.
I muted myself, but one of the things that I'm really bad at is like scheduling the live events and getting the live views that come with it. And so I was like, should we record it? Should we not? And then it's more fun to do it candid live. There's no take backs. People can comment in the chat and hopefully ask a couple questions. So let's go.
Totally. Right, here we go. Everyone, let's do our admin. Let me tweet it because that's what we do. Oh, fabulous. You've already done it. I'm going to piggyback off you. Retweet.
And boom.
And boom. We're good.
We are good.
Just one last thing. Sorry, Mal. We should do this live.
It's you got to treat it like a spaces, right?
Right. I'm here.
Hell yes.
I'm all yours. Hold on. Have I frozen or am I good?
You're good. Am I good?
Okay. I'm frozen on my screen, but that's okay.
Oh, I can see you. You're going. Siobhan is in. So if either of us is frozen, just let us know in the comments.
Oh my gosh, Siobhan Wong.
Yes.
In the audience. Now that's a pleasure. Wow.
She's
Hi,
such a treasure.
Wow. Good to see you, Siobhan. Incredible.
Oh wow. Bringing out the big guns early.
It's incredible. I'm so surprised.
Hi guys. All right. So you've been into NFTs for some time, and we've been circling for a lot of different things, and we can talk about a million things. I do want to talk a little bit about Bloom and how amazing all of you are, and kind of the really cool stuff that's going on. But let's do the traditional artist interview, and why don't you give us a little bit of your background, and where are you from, and what brought you down the path of becoming first an artist before we even get into the idea of what non-fungible tokens represent?
Yeah. Wow, what a question. I never really talk about where I came from much. It does come up occasionally. I've always been an artist, right? I've always been a digital artist for over 20 years. But without blockchain technology and without non-fungible tokens within that technology, I was unable to give my digital work provenance, right? Which meant that I couldn't sit with my peers. So commercially, having a career as an artist was kind of impossible, for me. There were a few ways to do it, but it was impossible. So I took a very common route, the commercial route. I was really fortunate. I grew up with some really exceptional talents. One of which was Amy Winehouse. I met her at Sylvia Young's, which was a stage school in London, where I'm from, in the UK. We became fast friends. That friendship grew. She went on to the Brits Academy. I went on to do other things, namely drugs, and dropped out of school and stuff, and found myself in this weird place where she was really going places, and I wasn't. And I kind of said, Amy, I need some help. And so she said, look, I might be able to get you some work experience. She was doing the Frank album for the Universal UK, and it was like, I might be able to get you some work experience working with me and the team, kind of creative art direction, that kind of thing. So I was like, cool, amazing. I did that, and I never left. And I ended up just kind of getting a permanent offer and then, staying there. And I was in this really strange role that kind of didn't exist between creative and art direction. So kind of taking her vision and working to realize it, the whole 1960s aesthetic, the Saturday night show, what do we need? What should the photographers that you work with be looking for aesthetically? And, so it was kind of art centric, the role, more art direction-y, but I ended up doing that for a while, and and then had a much more significant role in that capacity for Back to Black, which was very successful. And then rode those waves with other artists in that space, very privileged. And then things got a bit crazy, kind of moved into the audio viz side of things, like live events and transposing that stuff into the live setting, places like the festivals and that kind of stuff. Worked a bit with lights, programming lights and things like that, and doing mixtures of kind of different forms of digital visualization. So kind of, and I got really into that for a bit. And then, then I had some challenges, it got a bit too much for me being in that environment. It was I was young, and it was party town, and, and that excess was too much for me. So I left that space, and I kind of started to do more freelance work, kind of 3D generalist type stuff. And then, and always stayed kind of close to what was going on. And then I managed to do some cool things in the last kind of 10 years. And then I just kind of started focusing again on me, and looking after myself and my own well-being. And I had a family and, all that stuff. And then, then this technology came around, and it was like, hold on a second, I can actually do this thing I've always wanted to do, which is create art that is my own. And I can be an artist. And I had this network in the traditional domain because I was already really passionate about it, with the gallerists, with the and so on. And I was always working in consulting type roles within the art domain in the trad world, so with institutional CEOs and people like that. So big investment funds that were investing in art, in traditional art. And it just kind of made sense. And I found my feet here. And the rest is not so distant history.
It's so crazy to me that like a lot of my favorite artists in the space have experience kind of doing a lot of what you described, being kind of in this chaotic environment where you're supporting in certain instances much, at the time, bigger artists or different artists or even completely different things that ultimately like result in like something profound, and actually like being able to take that and do something new with it from people. I mean, a lot of the Bloom team to people like Silly Gabe and others. It's just so crazy to see that that for a long time it feels like, as we're starting to look at the history of the journey into the space and why NFTs become so important, is it was a lot of talented wanderers that had to basically go town to town and find a way to make ends meet because there wasn't anything permanent. And kind of what NFTs actually represent is like that level of permanence that actually, it's a lot different than deviant art or ArtStation or anything else, where the value is actually exchanged. And so can you talk about when you first saw NFTs, what did you think? Were you like, this is dumb and crazy, like so many other people?
Money. I saw CryptoPunks, and I saw these collectibles, and my first reaction, without knowing anything at all, was, holy, how much have they paid for that?
Cha-ching.
Like I'm gonna make a fortune. Like I'm gonna go in and like drop the bomb. And of course, very quickly, once you engage in it, you start to realize, how it all works and what that really is. That was my first reaction. It was cha-ching. It was, I've got a family. It would be great. I can generate a very quick income. I can take them on a nice holiday. That was my mentality. It was like very, very short-sighted and completely money. I didn't even care. It wasn't about art. It was just money. But that changed really quickly as I learned. It took about 3 or 4 weeks, actually. And I learned very quickly. And this was about the time that Twitter started to do spaces. It was a bit before that, but shortly after, several months after, 3 to 6 months after, people could, there were spaces popping up, this thing. And so you could connect with people and talk and learn very quickly. And I went through the cycle, Who are these OGs? Being resentful of them, then admiring them, and then they paved the way. And it's like this whole like journey of, you know,
And then resenting some of them again.
And then resenting them all again. Yeah. No, just not at all. No, listen, credit where credit is due. Early adopters are early adopters, and some of them are very talented indeed, and have done something very unique. So no, absolutely, credit where credit is due. They paved the way. And so I kind of thought to myself, gosh, this actually could be an opportunity. This could be a commercial opportunity, but in the sense of a lifestyle opportunity. I can actually create art, network, become the artist that I always wanted to be. And this is my shot at it. And I'm not too old yet. Okay, there's a 4 at the start of my age, but you know, it's like a new chapter for me. And it's like, you know, maybe I can make this work. Yeah. And then that kind of sense and feeling has just constantly evolved, right? Through time, you know. And I've met the most amazing people, and many people that I knew from industry, and many people that I didn't know and have admired from afar, you know. And it's suddenly like I'm talking to these guys, and it's just beautiful, you know, really.
It's I feel the same way, and I'm not an artist, but it's just like to think about where we started with this thing. And I mean, I joined for the same reason. It was to flip JPEGs. And you know, I've told this story before, and Rob, one of our business partners, you know, he was early into crypto and he was early into NFTs, and we were both just like a year or two too young for the internet. And so like the fact that we had 3 like lightning in a bottle instances, and I felt like I missed the first 2 was like really tough for me. And so like once we all saw it, it was like we all went pretty hard in on Nifty Gateway early on, or not
Yeah.
early on, but like mid on. And I do agree with you that like the combination of the timing of NFTs starting to show signs of life outside of CryptoPunks. This is pre Bored Ape Yacht Club. This is, I mean, even pre Beeple launching on Nifty Gateway. You just saw so much energy that was starting to bubble up. You saw early people, and once again, I was fans of some of these people. I'm still fans of some of these people. I'm gonna bucket them together so no one knows my true opinions on any of them. But you know, some of these big artists. You know, from Pac to Trevor Jones and everyone in between. I was a big fan of Jason eBay early on, Blake Catherine, and just seeing like this.
I think we can all admit that we all love Trevor Jones and we all love
Pac,
because you know these are really there's not much negatives you can say about these guys, you know.
Yeah, everyone. I backtracked, and I'm not going to go and critique. We could spend some time being critical down the road, but it was so cool to just. Once you, and what was cool for me is like once I owned something, even though it was on Nifty Gateway, it became like feeling that sense of ownership. Once I felt it, it became real to me. And then like that started like this massive experimentation that like within a month of me minting my first NFT, we started NFT Culture. And like it was just such a profound, wow, this is the future of everything. And like just watching y'all, and to your final point, was like interacting with people you thought, A, you didn't know they existed at the time, but B, becoming such a fan of so many people so quickly and hearing their backstories and what brought them here and everything else. You combine that with the unfortunate world situation that we were in. It was just a perfect storm where you combine Clubhouse Spaces, access to a new medium or asset class, and an unfortunate world event. That created, like, in my opinion, one of the most exciting, you know, outside of my family and children, like this is the most fun I've literally ever had in my entire life. And it's such a, you know, cool thing to just see where we're at and the maturation we're going through. So it's awesome that
Wag me. Like me, guys.
we you know, we're not all gonna make it, but we're all still early.
But we are early. Yeah. And we are building.
We are building. And that's what I love. And I want to keep asking a few more questions about the art before we kind of get into the other stuff that you're working on. But it's like we're all building in the open. And you know, for all intents and purposes, we're not influencers. You know, none of the people that I'm building with have hundreds of thousands of followers, and like being able to choose the kind of the loose collaboration or collaborators that we've all built from Bloom, Fam3, King, Rob, everyone else. None of this was intentional. None of this is by design. We just find these bubbles of like-minded people. And I think actually, like, one of the things that I love that Bloom's doing, and I think long-term can help the art and artists, is I hope and I pray that more artists do what Bloom is doing, because the artists can't compete with a 10K PFP drop. But if these loose groups of artists can form these collectives or these cohorts, you don't need 10 million discords. You can say, okay, these 20 artists are going to have their own discord, and then they're going to cross pollinate ideas. And all that does is just really cement a lot of this. And what you guys are spearheading there, and once again, we'll get to Bloom in a little bit, but with Bloom is like really exciting. But before we get there, did you mint an NFT before you bought an NFT? This is a key question. And if so, what was your first mint? And then when did you mint your first one?
I minted first, and the price was $1. It was a $1 NFT for cancer research. I don't know if I've frozen. I look like I've frozen on the screen, but
you're still there.
Still there. Okay, great. Yeah, it was a $1 NFT for cancer research on Portion called Cause and Cure. We raised about $50,000 indirectly from awareness and purchases. Obviously, a lot of people, I would say, you don't have to buy the NFT. You know, gas is gas. You know, it's better just to donate all the money, right? But if you want something, if you want an asset, take the NFT. And we did that. Yeah, that was the first NFT that I ever minted. Yeah, and definitely before I purchased. I minted an NFT, a second NFT, before I purchased an NFT.
That's interesting. And I actually have a tough question, and I want to get your perspective, because I do respect you so much, especially because you have become a vocal proponent of, and you know, I say it all the time now, stay for the art. Like, come for the PFPs, make some money, buy some art. It's like, we're all here, right? But there's so many artists out there that are starting to, not so many superlatives are dangerous, but one of the things that I'm commonly seeing is that there's some artists in the space that they and I don't want to judge anybody from their what everyone's life is most real to them. Like, the most painful thing they've gone through is their most painful thing, and we can't pretend we know that. But I do see right now, especially in this space, that there are a lot of artists that publish a lot of work and don't buy any NFTs. My view on this is that it doesn't matter how much money you've made or not made, but if you have made money in NFTs, there's some very, very, very inexpensive art, whether it's on Tezos or elsewhere. Do you have any advice for artists to encourage them to go down that path, or do you think it's kind of choose their own adventure? And sorry, this is a not prepared, tough question for you.
Yeah, it's a great question. A part of me wants to say yes, you should buy the art, because that you're giving back to the community, hitting space. But the truth is, not really. You know, do as you like. You know, it's about freedom of choice. What I will say is that buying art will give you a very different perspective on what you're doing and what you're selling, and it feels really good. And funnily enough, you know, we have to market ourselves, and there's huge advantages to buying art. You know, I was talking to a very good celebrity PR and social media agency recently, and they were saying, I said, you know, what's your current go-to top strategy for engagement? We tell all of our celebrity clients, Icky, to join the NFT community and buy NFTs, because they'll get more organic followers and engagement than anything else on Twitter right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying all celebrities have done that, but I'm saying it works. There's a reason influencers are influencers. And there's a strange psychology around this feeling of someone might buy my art, and so I need to be engaged with them and follow them, because if I'm not, there's no chance they'll buy my art. It's the lottery ticket, you know. I'm going to buy the lottery ticket, because if I don't buy it, then there's a chance I might not win the lottery, even though the odds are really slim. And people don't tend to follow thought leaders, so you can have really good content and not. So buying art, back to the question, there's lots of advantages to it because it engages a whole bunch of different things, right? But mostly it builds on engagement, with your community. And the more that people want to engage with you, the louder your voice is in the Twitterverse. And currently that's kind of where it's all housed. In terms of supporting the market and putting money back in the market, I don't think that's the play. So I don't think buying art is necessarily significant at all. I think mass adopting beyond the crypto native wallet is a much better solution to that, because the market, I mean, China alone is a multi-billion pound art market, trad art market. And that's not people buying art for investment. It's people buying art because they like it, and so that's kind of the way I feel about that. Like, there's advantages. I think it's a healthy thing to do, because I think it benefits the person buying it.
I agree, and I think that there's and once again, it doesn't matter if you buy a zero point zero 0.01 piece or 0.001 piece or a a
One Tez piece, yeah,
or a
absolutely.
2.5 Hana's piece, right? It's like I get the same joy. I actually right now I'm having more fun exploring and finding. You bought a piece a couple days ago, and I'm going to say the name wrong, but from Prince Diage that I thought was beautiful, and because you bought it, I went and checked out their other artwork, and I'm eyeing some of it to decide what to buy. But then there's also
the African
yes
photographer. I mean,
yes.
I know it's my interview, but yeah, I'll take an opportunity to say this. I do think you can check my timeline, and I do think that is great photography. It's beautiful work. Yes, exactly. That was the one I purchased.
Yes, it really stood out to me, and I would have never found this without you.
First of all, the model is stunning, right? And I was immediately drawn to that focal point, this beautiful model, and her face lit up beautifully. And then, it was this kind of beautiful composition. I love the way the energy of the focal point in these jewels, these Nigerian jewels, which are very precious in Nigeria, and they're worn to very significant events. And the way that he only used color for those, which is wonderful, skill. And I love the contrast, the contrast of the image. So yeah, I was a huge fan. The whole collection is amazing, and it's super reasonably priced. And yeah, just wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and once again, I don't want to make this shill, but it really just stood out to me, and I've been wrestling with this.
There's nothing to shill. It's not a project. It's just some art
right.
that I like that I bought, and I'm not selling.
Yeah, definitely. And Nilo has a question. I want to get to that question because that's kind of in the line of what I want to do. I have a couple quick more questions I want to get to, and then I want to really hone into what his questions focus on, but your long-term mission in this space, which I think is even more important than your art. But when we go back to a couple questions, who's your favorite artist or top 3 artists in the space? And you can't use Bloom.
I don't think I can answer that. I don't think I've got a top 3.
Okay.
I admire what Pac's done conceptually. It's hit and miss, but I admire a lot of it. I respect it. It's different, there's a lot of technical heroes in the space that I admire purely because they've been my heroes. So they're technical legends to me, but I don't necessarily love their art. People like Raoul Marx. He's just he was my idol. Now we follow and talk to each other. It's crazy to me. People like Rick Oostenbrug, who I do love Rick's work. But there's so many. There's so many within different capacities. But because the nature of my work is quite, the Bloom guys are who I admire the most. That's the truth.
Right.
And it's just the truth. But I am a big fan of art in general and art that is outside of the domain. I love Juan Miro. I love the work of some of the early Impressionists. I love abstract expressionism, Pollock, Rothko. I'm obviously completely a minimalist myself. I'm very into minimalism in its rawest form, not what I call post-digital minimalism. And I could talk all day long about that. But yeah, most of my inspiration comes from outside the digital domain.
Well, then we'll use that as a transition, and I'd love to actually do another episode where we actually just go into your style and how you came up with it. We could spend hours just going over that, but for the sake of our time together today, Let's kind of move beyond that and the importance of where you, because a lot of your talking points recently have been around taking NFTs to the next level and having NFTs starting to be associated with all the art and inspiration that you find from outside of the space that you're bringing back in. So, can you share with us kind of how you view NFTs moving from fringe to really being, and very briefly, and I'm not succinct at all, but when we look at the potential from real art collectors, traditional art collectors, and how much money actually goes into art on a yearly basis from an investment standpoint and the potential that is here, can you just kind of go on that diatribe for a little bit and explain to the audience how important this is?
Yeah, one art fund, and not the biggest art fund by a long stretch, say Deutsche's art fund, which isn't one of the biggest. This is institutional investment, so this is more about investing in art, not buying it because one likes it. Is larger than every sale that's ever been made in crypto to date for NFT. Just that one fund, and there are many of these. Rothko's floor price is about $70 million. It's absurd. There is a huge amount of interest and money out there that is completely untapped from an investment point of view. Then there is a mass market of just art lovers, that buy things to put on their walls, because they want to enjoy it, not because they want to use it as decoration, or they want to be inspired by it, not because they want to sell it. And those markets are huge, and you have to break that down domestically. And a good indication of that is to look at the galleries, the leading galleries, the Pace Gallery. Funnily enough, Pace is a great example because they've just had a collaboration with Art Blocks. But Pace and looking at what the leading museums are doing, certainly like the modern contemporaries, like the Tate in the UK, looking at the contemporaries out in North America, and another really untapped market is China, and that's because of their restrictions in crypto. So looking at what groups like Neil Digital are doing is really special. Absolutely, I see that as the next big step, because it's about valuation models, right? The volatility in this link to crypto, and this anti-gatekeeping mentality is resolved through increasing the market size and giving it a diverse audience that don't have the same motivations. In the real art world, an art collector that is a keen Rothko collector will buy a Rothko piece that they've eyed up from another Rothko collector that they despise, because they love the art and they need that art. That wouldn't happen here currently. And so the way you amend these things, the way you resolve these things, is by having consensus in valuation. So understanding the importance of authenticity, historical significance, provenance, and all those things. And to get to that point, I believe that these galleries and trad worlds are already engaged and they already want to become a part of this. But there are complex things to solve that aren't being addressed by our community today. Things like conservatorship, things like how you deal with the contract for a loan. If I want to loan a piece to a gallery to use, because I want that on the provenance. I want my piece to show that it was at the Calgary Contemporary with Andy Warhol on the 11th. Today I can't do that. I have to tell everybody, which isn't the most pleasant experience. It can feel a bit, salesy, and I don't like that. It should be on the provenance. In China, in the traditional days, they would mark the collectors. I heard that recently in a space on the art. Each collector would have its own seal. The most collarless episode ever, I just and so that it's about engaging these people and showing them the way, showing them that, first of all, that there is serious art in this space, delinking the collectibles market from the more traditional art market in the space, and being clear about what the technology is and where those use cases sit, engaging them, and then increasing the market side and getting them to engage on a mass scale in museums, galleries, and public spaces globally. And that's kind of how I see it progressing in a nutshell.
I think you're spot on, and I think that just the fringe that we've been in is laying precedent, right? You can't just go from zero to a million, but I do think that there's just so much stuff that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants. I love using that reference every time I talk to someone from the UK because Oasis was one of my favorite bands.
Also,
But
Namal, the other thing is this is nothing new.
right,
And I say to people, look, you might not care about art history, but one thing art history will teach you if you do bother to look into it is this is completely recursive. This is not some new thing. I know it feels like it is because you're a part of it, but it's not. This happened with Impressionists. Everyone wanted to paint like Raphael. It was just dead. If it didn't look like Raphael, then forget about it. It completely stagnated the art world. And then Impressionists wanted to do something that was different and expressive, and they had no buy-in, and they did it. And then the likes of the abstract expressionists took that same thing, and it was recursive. The Renaissance did it a little bit, but not so much. But pop culture movement with Warhol and the likes, the surrealist movement with Dali and the Juan Miro on the other end. If you look at the bourgeois, and this is all recursive. What we're going through right now is so normal, and galleries understand that. Real galleries understand that, and it's like we need to leverage that because they get it. They get that this is going to be massive. So let's help them. Why would Web3, as Web3 participants, Web3 to me is about choice. It doesn't, this idea that we cannot engage with centralized institutions and we cannot, to me, doesn't make sense because it's about choice. It's like, why be Web3 and then gatekeep from Web2? You're just doing the same thing they did. It doesn't benefit anybody. It's about doing it on our terms, and it's about saying, we welcome you here, but these are our terms, these are our rules. And if you want to engage with us, we're happy to, but this is how it works. We manage our commissions. We manage our, that's it.
no, I mean it's awesome, and I love the analogy, right? And you could take it all the way through like the modern era with Banksy and Shepard Fairey and like
Oh,
all
yeah.
it just there's cycle after cycle after cycle. And what's funny is like we're even going through these, and we talk about this a lot on the spaces where like the copycat, where for a while everyone was copying X copy, for a while everyone was copying Fuck Render with the bald heads, and I get like the astronaut conundrum that everyone had to deal with, and it's like everyone's chasing.
I'm going to clear this up once and for all. I'm going to do it in a very diplomatic way. The original astronaut, the OG astronaut, is a gentleman called Raoul Marx. He operates in the NFT space. Check out his work and his movies. He was a filmmaker. He is a genius. And you should all be equipped and learn from that individual. But he is the original astro. And he created an astronaut model and he gave it away for free as an asset to all 3D people. And it's still to this day probably one of the best astronaut models. That is the original OG astronaut, to those that are interested, because astronauts have a lot of kind of history kind of their own in this domain, in digital art. So yeah, I'd love to share that with people.
I appreciate your candor there, because there is a lot of the those issues that we're running into in the space where it's just because you're first, especially with the current system that we're in right now, doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be the loudest. And with the money that's chasing everything nonstop, it is something to keep an eye on. And so I hope this is the right Raoul
It is.
Marx. Okay.
Two-time Emmy Award winning. Felt that, and look, he's got OG Astro in his profile now. Yes, Raoul.
That's
so
awesome.
happy he did that. Yeah, no, he's incredible and such a lovely human.
I'm pretty sure one of my friends, Sven, has one of his really important pieces. But that's awesome.
God.
I'm glad that you helped clear this up. And nothing against people who like creating astronaut NFTs.
Everybody is inspired by this. I've done astronaut pieces. We've all done it. I mean, I'm so inspired, and so many of us have been inspired by this work, and it's beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about understanding the kind of history of the space, and I think that's beautiful, something we should celebrate,
Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with taking a similar idea, being inspired by it, making it your own, and that's what beautiful. That's what art's all about. Everything is everything else.
I completely agree. All right, so we've talked a little bit about your history. When you do your next, I want to learn a little bit about when your next drop is, and then we can maybe spend a few minutes on Bloom.
Yeah, amazing. I don't release work often. I released one series of work last year, which is 3 pieces. And I've done another piece about art and transformation for Neil Digital for the Beijing Contemporary, which I just heard today I was successful with. So I'm going to mint that on Super Rare Spaces for Neil Digital, and then the next work will probably be with Super Rare, and I've got some ideas around that, and I'm exploring some interesting things. But I'm in no rush. For me, what's important is that the language that I speak is best represented, and I never want to put out anything that I'm not happy with, and that means I have to consider everything, including how it's experienced. None of my work is created to be seen on a screen. I hope that it can work on a screen, but it's created to be used alongside hypervision holographic technology or installation space or projecting, somewhere like the Atelier Lumiere, or, that's always what I have in mind. And for Neil, it's on a 10-meter screen. So it's like, I'm always thinking about that. And that takes time. And I always want to create work that people think about and creates a discourse. I don't like to answer questions with my work. I like to ask them, and kind of the importance of listening. And I think that's really important. And sometimes that means that I have to think deeply about these things and do a lot of studies and a lot of R&D, and that's what I do.
That's awesome. And is this the one that you've titled Tutorial?
Yes, tutorial.
Can you provide a little new, even though you want it to be provoking and you want it to be self-inflective, can you provide a little bit of background into why you've called it Tutorial?
Absolutely. I mean, so first of all, the Neil Digital had a theme. So there was a theme, and the theme was very loose. It was art in transformation. So that was my brief, if you like. And what it got me thinking about was the digital art movement. And it is kind of in its infancy in this capacity, in this domain. And like we said earlier, it's all about valuation models, large crypto wallets, and people appeasing that, right, by creating something that they believe will sell. And one of the ways that that's been done is by taking advantage of techniques that are very kind of wowy and flashy, but to the technical minded are very simple. And this piece tutorial is kind of a play on the idea that many people are just taking tutorials and replicating them. And I'm not talking about making them their own, which is another story altogether. I'm talking about just simply replicating them, and they're getting a lot of credit and a lot of kudos, and that's a lack of education. If someone wants to buy someone's work that's a tutorial because they like it, but they understand what it is, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Even if they want to pay 100 ETH for it, that's fine by me. But it's about understanding and the transparency in the space. And I feel like for growth, you have to challenge that perception. So what I did with this piece was created my version of a tutorial. So I used one primitive, which in 3D is one shape, and that was a sphere. So the entire composition, the background, the shape you see there, everything is all just a sphere, one sphere, and it's just repeated a million times and constructed in a way to make these different shapes and the sensation of liquid and all this kind of stuff. And it just kind of uses very simple, basic advection techniques, but they look very wowy, right, because of this effect. And equivalently, the music was designed to accommodate that. So it's a single sine wave that's just been layered, sine being a single spherical shape of audio. And it kind of comes together, and it's aesthetically, it touches on my passion for minimalism, and the textures and the designs were inspired by a very well-regarded photographer called Sugimoto. And if anybody's seen Sugimoto's work, well, if you're a photographer, you definitely know who Sugimoto is, because he's an absolute legend. But that's where the aesthetic and the look came from. And I wanted to do something that wasn't necessarily black and white, but something that spoke to those natural minimalistic kind of the essence of minimalism, which is a single cube, a single primitive, scale, form, and take some of the lessons from Impressionists in those respects. The same abstractions that say those other expressionists took from impressionism to adapt that. We can get very technical about it because
Yes.
but principally it's just a conceptual piece that talks to the idea of the illusion of the space and what we perceive as valuable. Yeah.
I love it. I know we're running out of time. You have a hard stop in about 4 minutes. Let's hustle the bloom, and then we'll just have to do another one of these.
This is Bloom is I'm a founding member. There's 10 of us, and they are a group of incredible artists who I admire, and I'm glad to call my friends, the likes of some of the best in the space and the most successful in the space: Hannes Hummel, Stefan, No Creative Abode, Tina Eisen, Siobhan Wong, Ben Thomas, David Lissa, Oni Rowe. I'm missing myself. And then there's one other. Oh my gosh, I hate having to do this. There's one other I've forgotten, but I'm sure I'll remember shortly. And the 10 of us created this collective to address this very question of how we can push the space forward. We want to build, but not self-serve. So we're not selling you anything. We're trying to create a community. We're reaching out to galleries. We're big, respectable galleries. We're having the discussion. We're driving the narrative forward. I've got a meeting in 5 minutes with the auction house Pierre Berge and the Atelier Lumiere, and looking at how collectors can monetize their collections. That doesn't benefit me at all.
Did you say Deximal? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, Deximal! How could I forget? Oh my God, Deximal.
It's okay.
My absolute love.
You'll have to make it up later, but sorry, keep going.
Deximal knows. Deximal knows how I feel. By the way, I don't know if you've managed to see, but Deximal just did a collaboration with Grimes, and it's mind-bending. If you look at Grimes' Instagram, you'll see this incredible mecca at their concert in Mexico. Anyway, check it out. Deximal is just, it's another world. Anyway. So yes, and so driving this narrative forward, and that's really what the Bloom Collective is about. So it's in a consultative capacity. I mentioned monetizing collectors' collections. That doesn't benefit us, but it helps push the space forward because it gives integrity. So traditional collectors viewing full collections and marketing those collections, and explaining the nuances of the digital space, because it's easy to understand generative art. It makes sense. Generative art, AI art, it's got a real voice. But the rest of the space is all over the place, long form art, commercial looking work, illustration, animations, what is it all? What is this? What are the new isms? What are the new headers? And they all have a place, and there's space for all of them. But somebody needs to curate that, and they need to present it in a way that these traditional people can understand, so that they can enjoy this stuff as much as we do.
I love it. Well, I just want to say thank you for your amazing time. If you're watching this on Twitter, come over to the YouTube, like and subscribe. Make sure you check out the Kid Icarus. Make sure you check out This Is Bloom. Keep an eye out for a lot more information. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's just been a blessing to get to know you, and we're going to do more of these.
I can't wait, and I'm so. And can I say it would be so awesome if we could get Dex or Hannes or someone like that to talk, because they never talk, and they are just so outrageously talented. Or I know you've done interviews with Chris and all that. Anyway.
The entire Bloom team has an open invite anytime they want.
Oh, that's amazing. We'll get some votes going.
My platform is yours, and so y'all use it. You're just going to have to peer pressure them into actually showing up.
I'm sure it'll be super easy. They talk so highly of you, Mel. We adore you. We adore what NFT Culture does. I just want to actually, I've got 3 minutes. Let me use it like this. I know you've done the whole like and subscribe thing. Like, subscribe. Yeah, definitely do that. NFT Culture for me is one of the most respectable and reputable brands for NFT culture, literally, that there is. I know there's a lot of great media publications out there, but you guys really don't get enough credit. And that's why we are really committed to working with you, working alongside you in any capacity that we can, because nobody knows the space as well as you. Nobody knows the artists, the OGs as well as you, and it's just a phenomenal Discord, phenomenal community, phenomenal platform, great account, great content, and you're doing some really interesting stuff that I'm hyper excited about with Fanfare and Tommy, King of Midtown, and the Crypt Gallery, and so much opportunity for people. I would hate for them to miss out on that. And I hope we get those culture awards, those real culture awards for the NFT community, and real awards. That would be phenomenal.
Let's all do it together. And thank you for the kind words. And yeah, hopefully we get Dexmol and Hannes on in the near future. So, all right, everyone, have a good one.